welcome to the Love How Deep podcast with Brian and Heather Mayer. Our purpose is to equip married couples like you with resources that rely on the transformative power of God's Word to strengthen your relationship. Hey everybody, we are so glad that you've chosen to listen to the podcast again today. We have a new episode for you, Finding Joy in the Mundane. And even doing like the ability to find joy in the mundane, did you know that can possibly even bring you closer together in your marriage? I think it could. We're going to have some tips here that we're going to share.
Yeah.
And hopefully some things that'll kind of spark your curiosity and your interest, and you can apply them to your own life, to your own marriage, and see if it doesn't bring you a little bit closer to each other when you're doing those mundane, boring things, and somehow you find joy in that.
Yeah.
Is it even possible?
Right. I mean, I wish life could be just super exciting all the time, where we're flying on jet planes here, there, and everywhere. And
we got fancy vacations.
Yeah, paparazzi, snapping photos of us going to the grocery store.
No.
And actually, that doesn't sound very good. But I will say this is an appropriate episode for today, because when we were at church earlier, they do a little pre-service just sort of encouragement to us that are serving, and the person that did that talked a little bit about finding joy, and just the difference between happiness and joy and all that.
That is a difference.
Yeah.
That
and
I
that's
think
what
so
we're
many
going to talk about. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just running over your words.
No.
I think so many people have that confused, that happiness and joy are the same thing, and they're really not.
That's right.
And that joy truly comes from the Lord.
Yeah.
There are things, temporary things that make us happy, but you can still find that joy from God, and no matter what it is that you're doing or going through in life. So, yeah.
I would agree. And so let's just jump right in. And the first thing we want to talk about is, there are challenges in the mundane things of life. And, there is this misconception a lot of times that, if I'm a Christian and I've got the Lord within me, that, my life is going to be amazing all the time, and everything around me is just going to create happiness, and, there's not much that I need to do about that, but it's just going to be there. And, with this, again, it's not necessarily something to be sought after, but it's more of just opening up our heart, I would think, to what God has for us. And sometimes it's all about even reframing our situations, because, maybe we think something is not great, but, there's oftentimes lessons to be learned within those, mundane sort of areas of life. And, again, I think there's probably a little bit of both. Maybe I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth here, but there is a little bit about being intentional, but also just sort of opening ourselves up to letting God fill us with that joy in spite of our mundane tasks.
Right. And I think, too, that, we get very set in our ways with our patterns and our schedules and everything that we're doing day in and day out. And then eventually you look back on your life and you're like, I've done nothing, yet I am absolutely exhausted. My life is boring. And together our lives are boring, and our family is boring. Everything is so mundane. But I think that it's just because we get so set in our ways of doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's like Groundhog's Day all over again. Mm-hmm. And, it's so I think that, we don't intend on our lives being that way, but sometimes they can get that way. And I think when you recognize it and you see that, it's good to, I guess it's good to see that there's a lot of, redundancy in our lives, and what can we do about that? Yep. What can we do to shake things up, or even when you have to do these mundane tasks, what can you do to shake them up so that it's more interesting, or you find a little bit more joy in it, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that leads us into our next segment, right?
It does. Yeah. Yeah. So cleaning my house, that is mundane. Personal experience. I mean, that's what we're going to talk about here. The personal experiences that we have with mundane tasks, cleaning my house. I don't like it. It's not fun. I would rather do anything but clean, but my house needs to be cleaned. And so, I really like when I start to, well, I turn on the Roomba, but then when I, need to mop, or Brian is so gracious to run the vacuum on the upstairs portion of the house with the carpet, or cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning the kitchen, whatever it is, we turn on worship music or anything upbeat and peppy and happy or whatever. And, it just makes it more fun because, you might find me like dancing around with a mop or singing at the top of my lungs or like whatever.
You are a good singer, unlike me.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, and we can, I don't know, just things that we might hear in a song might spark a conversation between me and you, Brian, as we're working together towards that common goal of getting the house cleaned and getting all of the cat hairballs like vacuumed up or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think things like that make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more fun. We're sharing that moment together, trying to bring some happiness or joy into that icky task of cleaning. I don't know. Brian, do you have an example?
Yeah, I think for me, I love to run. It's something that I've done for the last 25 years of my life. And I'll be honest, there are moments where it's like, wow, this can be super boring. And if I let my mind kind of stay in that place, then that is sort of what I will start feeling. Wow, this is really boring. But I think what's made it really special for me is it's been a time for me to connect to God a lot more, because I'm out in nature and I'm seeing, the birds, and I'm listening to the trees rustle in the wind and knowing that that's God, that's God's creation.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's good.
I'm with him, and he and I will have conversations, I'll be praying and talking about things with him, and it's just an amazing time. And then also just, maybe there's some problems in my life or some things that need to get worked out, things that need to get taken care of. I have this amazing way of being creative when I'm running. I come up with these creative solutions sometimes that I don't come up with if I'm not running. It's very strange, but
that's interesting.
Maybe it's just the oxygen flowing through my body and the blood pumping or something. But sometimes I will stop and I will pull out my phone and I will take the note out on the phone and type in, make sure to, our next podcast episode should be about this or whatever, and then go talk to Heather.
Yeah, I will say there have been times when you've come back from a run and you have this great idea. Mm-hmm. So I think you're out there solving the world's problems and planning our future. I don't know, but it is pretty cool that running does that for you. Yeah.
You got another?
So I do have another example. Once upon a time, I used to find watching football games quite boring and mundane, and they were on all day. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so boring. But the way that I engaged in football was that I started to ask questions. Oh, wait, what just happened there? Who's got the ball? Who's winning? What happens if this team wins and that team loses? Then what happens to like who's in the lead and who's going to be in the Super Bowl, and all of those different questions. Like, what was that penalty? Are they called penalties?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What was the penalty all about? Like what's happening? So by me learning more about the game, I became very engaged in it. And then of course, me being from Texas, I really became an avid Dallas Cowboys fan. And so, I enjoy watching football now. I think that I've found that I can't say joy in it. I could say happiness in it, but I do feel like asking the questions keeps those lines of communication open between me and Brian, and he's filling me in on what I've missed or what's happened. And it just keeps fun conversation going. And so I can watch a game and enjoy it. And
Right. Yeah. And I like that as well. I think it's kind of a cool interaction that we can have, just something that we can share together. So I love it.
Especially when we can get up off the couch and start screaming and yelling at the TV when the Cincinnati Bengals do something wrong or Dallas Cowboys do something wrong. We support each other with our teams, but it's just fun, good interaction, I think.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I have another one. I just thought about this that I think could be interesting to talk about. Driving to work. I mean, and I know for some of you that are listening, maybe you work from home, or you're a stay-at-home mom or dad. So you, again, maybe not driving to work, but for those of you that do, probably doing it the same thing every day for year after year after year. It's just even that little task just can get monotonous and mundane. Right. And occasionally, when I'm really thinking about it, I will actually think about driving a different way to work. And even if it's a couple of minutes longer, it's okay. But it's interesting to do that. And you start to notice that you start paying attention a little bit more to things that are going on instead of just being on this just autopilot. And you've probably had this situation, Heather, where you've driven somewhere and you got there and you don't really remember the drive. And it's kind of scary.
That's a little scary to think about.
Because you're like, how did I not crash?
Right. It's like your senses go to sleep, but that's an interesting way to think about doing, to try. Oh my gosh, I just cannot talk today. To drive a different way, because it's like it wakes up your senses.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And then one other thing I'll throw out real quick and we can move on. You could even think about brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Give that a shot. I'm actually thinking about doing that tonight just for the heck of it, and just to see. And it's going to be really strange, and it's going to be interesting. But I have a feeling I'm probably going to be paying more attention to what I'm doing. Okay, making sure, am I doing this right? Am I getting it? Yeah, right. Yeah. So anyway, I guess the point here is there's all kinds of little things throughout the day that you can find that, yes, if your attitude is, this is boring or this is stupid, then that's what's going to turn into. But you can make it different.
I think so too. And I think it's important to prioritize your relationship with your spouse over the task that you're doing, whatever it is, even if it's something fun like watching a football game or, running errands together or driving to work, whatever it is, it can just prioritize the relationship, especially if that act is done with your spouse.
Yep. Yeah. That's right. Exactly.
Yep.
So, all right. So let's talk about 4 tips for you as a married couple to help with this whole idea of finding joy in the mundane. And so tip number 1 is just to simply make time for each other every day. I mean, that's not rocket science, but making sure somehow, some way that you are. And again, this kind of goes back to what you were just saying, Heather, about prioritizing your spouse. There is a significance in doing that, and I talk a lot to people about, kind of life is on a scale. You got the task on one side of the scale, you got your relationship with your spouse on the other side. And, again, sometimes we get so focused on everything that we've got to do during the day that we do lose sight of, or take for granted or get complacent about, hey, I've got this person on the other end of the scale that loves me and cares about me, and that I love and care about them. And that can kind of be forgotten because, I've got to get to this and I've got this deadline and I've got to do that. And, maybe there's some ways to incorporate each other in that.
Yeah, that's good.
And there's a verse here. Maybe it applies, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. But it's always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. And that's in Ephesians 4:2. And I guess what that says to me is that, maybe there are times that I mess up and I don't include you as much as I should in something, which, with Love How Deep, I've had a tendency to do that. I'm going to go do this. And then tell you a week later, hey, I forgot to mention I did this. And I think I'm getting better with that now.
You're getting much better. Can I just let our listeners know that you had started a website before I even knew it?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, he had his foot on the gas pedal.
Yeah.
But, we have to be patient and I think it's, like he's already talked about, just prioritizing your spouse and prioritizing that time that you're giving to each other. including your spouse, even in some of these mundane things. So, yeah.
You got another tip,
I
which might be something we've
do.
talked a little bit about already, but
I know. I feel like we kind of have a little bit, but find ways to connect over shared interests or hobbies. So, it says in the Bible, two are better than one because they have good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up, but pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. And that's found in Ecclesiastes 4, verse 9 and 10. And I love that one because it's really just God sharing with us that, like, you're better together. You're better together. You can do things together. You can help each other. You can go through all of these things in life together, whether they are good or bad. It doesn't matter. But I really want to kind of talk about this on a more positive note of, like I said, of sharing interests and hobbies together. Maybe there are things that that you both like to do. Maybe you both like to go running. So maybe you go run together. Maybe one runs faster than the other, so maybe the faster one kind of slows down a little bit so that you can enjoy a run together. So just finding those interests that you have that are common, that you have in common. Or maybe you want to find something new that you like to do together. Maybe you take a cooking class. We've done that a couple of times and have thoroughly enjoyed that. And or maybe a drawing class. We've also done that. Where we watched some videos and tried to learn how to draw. We haven't done that in a while. I can't say that we're good at it or anything, but it certainly is fun to do that together because we can comment on each other. We can encourage each other. So, whatever it is that you find that you have in common, or maybe one of you likes and the other one's going to support and try to find an interest in it. Like, no matter what it is, doing things together can take the mundane points out of life a little bit. Just bring a little bit more excitement of something different that you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll say this might probably be another podcast episode down the road, but, you and I are obviously doing Love How Deep in this ministry and all that's with that,
yeah,
with this podcast and a blog and the marriage conference that we've developed and the forgiveness online course and all the free resources that we have. We've really made it our life's purpose to help other couples, I think, just connect more with Christ and more with each other. And so those are definitely shared activities. Again, I'm not saying that everything that you do has to be this major purpose like Love How Deep is for us, but I would encourage you, the more you can do these little things together, that I do want you to ultimately get to a place where there is a purpose for your marriage and it's outside of the two of you.
That's good.
Right. So again, that might be another whole podcast episode, actually. So, all right. Tip number 3, practicing gratitude. And I think really there's no other place that we should go to but the Bible to look for what it means to be grateful for something. But I love what it says in 1 Thessalonians 5:18. It says, "Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." And, I think for me, a couple of weeks ago, my stepfather passed away suddenly, unexpectedly. And I think before my relationship with Christ, that would have really just nailed me, so much harder. But because I've got him, I know that at the end of the day, no matter what happens to us here, we've got life after this. And sometimes, when things like this, when terrible, awful things like this happen, it is hard to find gratitude. And I think what helped me is I was able to speak at the service, and I was able to talk about the memories with him and everything that he meant to me, and just that, the loyalty and the integrity and the consistency. Those were the 3 words that kept coming up to me over and over again about him. And so again, very sad time of grief and time of mourning, no doubt about it. But it really helped me to find what was important to me about him, and that I was grateful for the time that we spent here together on this earth. what's that silly cliched thing about don't cry because it's over, but smile because it happened.
Right.
I think we need to do more about that. And I think you and I, when it comes to like the mundane, obviously the death of someone's not mundane, but for us, the mundane things, like for me taking out the garbage or you cooking dinner,
right.
We're always grateful and thankful to each other about that. And sometimes couples get into this place of like, well, that's just what he's supposed to be doing.
Right.
So why
it's
would
just
I
expected.
thank him? Right. We hear that sometimes.
Mm-hmm. We do.
And yes, maybe it is. Maybe I do expect you to make dinner because I can't, because I'll burn something. But that's not the point. The point is still thank your spouse for what they're doing, right?
Right.
I mean, yeah. So that's tip number 3. I think we said we'd do 4 here, right? You have a 4th tip for us?
Yes. Celebrate small moments and milestones. So an example that I have for this is like today, really this whole weekend, we had a lot of work to do for Love How Deep. We decided we're going to each write a certain number of blog posts, and we're going to record a couple of podcasts. We're going to do some Facebooking and things like that. Just, set some things up and schedule them to go out. And it really is a lot of work, a lot of time spent on that. And so we decided, when we get it all done, we're going to reward ourselves by going out to a nice dinner. And, you might not want, it might not be something like that for you, but maybe you high five each other and say, hey, we did it. We got the yard raked, or we got, the house cleaned on the inside or whatever. You can high fiving and telling each other good job and thanks for helping. Like Brian, you were just talking about gratitude. Maybe you just say, you know what, let's go for a walk and just kind of decompress after whatever it was that we just had to kind of endure together, whatever it is. But just acknowledge that you did it. You did the mundane tasks, and all right, it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's worth it.
Yep. It's good. And
so,
really,
sorry,
were you going to say something else? Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that when you mark something with, or if you mark a milestone with a celebration, I think it just plants it into our brain a little bit more. And again, it helps us look back on that, again, mundane thing as not necessarily so mundane. So,
right.
Yeah, don't be shy about marking something
right.
that you did.
Right. No matter how silly it seems. There's just something to that with celebrating that with your spouse, no matter how big or small it is. And Mark 10:9 says, therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. And so, we talked about in the beginning how maybe finding some joy in these mundane tasks could help strengthen your marriage. Like that verse right there says, what God has joined together, let no one separate. And so allow these little moments that you share together to bring you closer together as a couple. And, like I said, when Brian and I are cleaning the house together, we've got some worship music going and we're just singing and together or whatever around the house and dancing with a mop and a broom, whatever, just being silly. We just find so much joy in that. And we're so grateful to each other for having shared in that moment. We don't go around sharing that with everyone. Oh, we had the best time cleaning. It's not like that, but just with each other, there's this connection that I feel like I can't describe it. I don't know if it's coming out across to y'all or whatever, to our listeners, but I don't know. I just feel so much closer to you, Brian, because we've done this thing together that's boring and we found some joy in it. And I feel like it brings us closer together.
That's
I don't
good.
know.
Yeah.
So, and yeah,
it's good. So I'm smiling really big at you right now. And I could tell you were trying to figure out, what does that smile mean? And you started to wonder. And it's just that I'm actually experiencing a great deal of joy just sitting here discussing these issues and helping our listeners. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome stuff.
Fun. It's fun. It's good.
Yeah. And with that, we've got a couple of more things to do to wrap up. But you know what we didn't do before we started this episode is we didn't say who was going to say what on these final things. So with that, do you want to offer up some encouragement? And then I will talk about our free resource.
Sure. Yes. So just make sure that you take time. I can't even talk. Make time for each other every day. Find ways to connect over some shared interests or hobbies, or even find some new ones together. Practice gratitude and celebrate these small moments and milestones with each other. Don't forget to do those things. It can make your marriage, really something special. Just even though a lot of things that we do together are boring and mundane, the same old, it can just make it a little bit stronger, a little bit more powerful. So, yeah.
Yep, that's good. And if you need any help with any of this, we like to offer our free resources, and we have one I think that applies just perfectly to this episode, and it's called the 21 Days of Gratitude Journal, and it's free, and it's designed to help you focus more on the positive. And so what you'll be doing is you're going to be creating a daily habit with 3 quick prompts that you'll write about every day. And if you do that for 21 days, it will create a habit, and you will notice that you are becoming more positive. And I would encourage you both to do this. You might want to do it separately, and then come together and share notes on that. So, and there's a link for that in our show notes.
And let me just interject here as well. I think that by doing that, I think it's going to get your eyes off of what you see as the mundane experiences of life, and how, it's just, you're tired of it or whatever. It's going to force you to look for the positive in life. And
That's right.
we sometimes just need to be reminded to do that and create that new habit.
Yep.
And I also want to say that if you find that your dates with your spouse are boring and mundane, you could also look on the website for the date nights. We've put together a couple of different ideas just to kind of refresh your brain, refresh that romantic part of your marriage with each other, and just rekindle that romance and love. So check out the date nights. You can just print those off and go and do them and enjoy them and have fun. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well, so you have those 2 resources. And with that, I think this is a wrap.
This is a wrap.
Yes. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.